Always remember to do your own research as some of the tools that I'm about to show in this series are very new. Hey, welcome back to the channel, where we are continuing on our journey to complete our NFT generating card tool. We've been doing so well this far, and if you're not familiar with what we are doing today, there's a whole series that you can watch where we create this tool from start to finish. As you can see, so far we've done all of these tasks, and in the last video we actually completed this service over here, right, to create the actual card. We also in the process have basically completed these two here at the bottom as well, seeing that by nature we have checked for errors and resolved them, and also have been logging in the console. So today we are going to implement the NFT transfer service, which is the last part. This is where we take all of the data that we've created and simply transfer the NFT, making sure that it has successfully transferred. I'm very excited for this video as it's kind of our finale, right? This is where we are going now to complete this entire process. Now, firstly, before we start, we can look at our architectural diagram. We can see that today we're going to focus on this last little part here. We're going to be making use of Ethers.js. We're going to get some input data right after we've created the actual cards. And we're going to look at creating a Ethereum NFT transfer service, and as well an interface that is agnostic, so the INFT transfer service as well. We're going to be making use of the Ethereum RPC to send communication on what we want to do. So we're going to actually transfer these NFTs. We can also see in our flow diagram that so far we've been just going down the line, and the last step is truly to go and transfer the NFTs to the wallet, making sure that they have successfully transferred, and then send a success message, and we are done. As a tiny reminder and prerequisite, something that we did before is we set up this wallet where we attach its private key to our environment variables. This is important for now, as this is what we'll need to actually send these NFTs out. Now, a fair warning here is that if you're not comfortable with coding and understand the concepts fully, do not go ahead and try this, because you do need to work with actual funds because there are gas fees involved. As you can see, this is the wallet. And if I go to the NFT transfers in this wallet, there are these 4 NFTs, which I've transferred quite a while ago in here. Now we're going to add some funds, which I already have. I do have the private key of this wallet set up in my environment variables, so that when we are done with this service, we can actually have the program transfer these NFTs individually to their respective wallets. Also, like before, I will not be able to show you in the console this type of data like the private key, the mnemonic phrase, as then people will actually get access to those NFTs if we do the transfer. What I will be able to show you is that the cards do get created, and we can look at the transfer data from that contract as we run the program. But from here on out, some of these data pieces will be kept secret. All right, let's jump into coding this out. I'm now going to go ahead and clear the terminal, and then inside of our run.ts, make sure that this last log does not get logged. It's fine for us to log some of the other data pieces, but when it comes to the NFT wallets or any sort of thing like that, we want to keep that concealed. So we can try this out just to make sure that our system works before we go ahead and transfer these NFTs. Remember, this is a very important part. This is something that we can't easily revert. So we need to do our testing in a step-by-step fashion. So here we can see there's no sensitive data being logged out in the console. We are generating the wallets, we are generating the cards. It says that the cards have been saved, and that is perfectly fine to show. Behind the scenes, what's happening is we have that data, and then the last step, we're going to simply do the transfer, and we'll see similar logs like this, not revealing any private information. Okay, so now let's go ahead and close down everything here, and then create our interface and call this iTransferService.ts. We're going to start off with creating a new interface, and the interface will be the INFT transfer result. Now, inside of this result, we can put anything that we can get back from the response from a transaction that happened on the blockchain. So we can maybe potentially get back the token ID, the from address, the to address, success or not. and the transaction hash, and if there was an error. This will be particularly useful if something goes wrong for us to analyze and see what could have been the possible cause. Now that we have a well-defined result object, we can go ahead and define the interface INFT transfer service. And in this service, we're going to have a transfer NFTs to wallet function. This function will take in the NFTs with wallets, and this will have a data type of INFT with wallet interface array. Okay. And then what will this function return to us? Well, we'll have a promise, and this promise will have a type of INFT transfer result, the one that we defined here at the top. Now we've got one function that we're going to have to flesh out. That's going to take in all the NFTs with their wallets, that data, and do the transfer for us. In our services, we can now go ahead and create our new file, which is the NFT transfer service. This time it's the actual implementation. And we'll go ahead and export a new class, Ethereum NFT transfer service. This will implement the INFT transfer service that we just created now as well. We can hover over this and just say quick fix and implement our function over here. There is a few things I would like to set up before we get into defining the class, and that is some variables. The first variable I want to create is this ERC721 ABI. Remember, an ABI is kind of like the blueprint of a contract, giving us the functions that's available for us to call. This is useful for when we want to interact with an existing contract that is on the blockchain. We did the same thing in our NFT scanner over here, as you can see. So we're basically saying that these are the few variables that we might interact with on a contract that we are going to reference. We might use the transfer from, also the safe transfer from if we want to, or is approved for all, set approved for all. And these are the functions that we would like to work with. So this is just a way of determining what functions would be available on the contract, seeing that there's no direct interface to that when we spin up an instance. Next, let's go ahead and define our options. Now, this is a pattern we've done before, where we define what we're going to put in the constructor of this class. So the values are going to be the RPC provider URL, so we can interact with the blockchain. We're also going to pass in the NFT contract address. This is the NFT collections address. And then we're also going to need that NFT wallet private key and also the NFT holders public key. The public key is to fulfill the from field, and then the private key is going to be used to sign the transaction so that it can actually programmatically send that NFT. Next, let's go make sure that we have ethers imported. So ethers are going to be the library that we use in order to interact with the contract. Inside of the class, we can go ahead and at the very top, create 3 private variables. These are the variables that we are now going to assign some values to in our constructor, and basically what we're going to get from our options that we pass in. So we can go ahead and define our constructor. We'll pass it in the options, which will be type of I options that we've defined here at the top. The very first line in the constructor is we can go ahead and assign this private variable. This .rpc provider will be a new ethers JSON RPC provider, and we provide our URL, which we have in the environment variables. Next, we want to define a wallet. Now, instead of actually having this as a private variable, I'm going to change this to say that this will be our ethers wallet. I made a mistake over there. So therefore, we can go and say this .wallet is going to be equal to a new ethers .wallet. So we're going to create a wallet, giving it a few of the stuff we have in options. So inside of the options, we got our private key. So we're going to say NFT holder private key, like so. And then we can also pass in that RPC provider. So then this .rpc provider. Now we'll have a wallet that we can work with. And now we can go ahead and assign our NFT contract. And again, this is not the NFT address. We should fix this to be the NFT contract. so that we have our provider, wallet, and our actual contract. We'll use the address to create this. Now, before we define our actual NFT contract, let's actually put in an if statement and import our app error that we've been using throughout the series. Basically, this is going to check if the wallet that we just created using this private key, if its address is exactly the same as the NFT holder wallet address that we are passing in. This is to make sure that the private key is the actual private key of this address that we are about to use. And if not, we can throw an error. This will save us a lot of headache because if we did not pass the correct private key to the public key we are using, this will not work. Now we can actually go ahead and say, well, let's define the NFT contract, and that's going to be ethers.contract. And in this contract, we pass a few things. Firstly, we're going to pass in the options.nft contract address, the one that is on Ethereum right now. Then we're going to pass in our ERC 721 ABI, the actual blueprint, right? And then lastly, we can also pass in our wallet that we are going to use. Okay, great. So now we can move over to the NFT transfer to wallet function. We can go ahead and remove this for now. And let's put in a results variable. This will be of type NFT transfer results. And currently it's going to be an empty array. We're also going to put a log, logging the amount of NFTs that we are going to send to wallets. We are not logging out any private information. Lastly, we're going to just make sure that we return the results. And it's complaining because we actually should be returning here in the promise an array. So we might need to go ahead and fix our interface for the transfer service. Make sure that this is returning a result array as well. And then because this function is an asynchronous task, we just need to make sure that we assign async to the front of the function. Now, at this point, you have a few options. Remember, we added a few things in the ABI, like approve for all and such. If you would like to, at this point, transfer from a different contract or whatever it might be, you can manipulate this state to firstly approve those transactions from this wallet. But seeing that we're using the exact same wallet that holds the NFTs that we created this contract instance from using Ethers, we don't need to do that approval step necessarily. So we can just go ahead now and loop over each one of our NFTs and transfer them. So let's create a for loop, and in here, let's define a variable and let's extract the NFT data. We're also going to extract the wallet, and this will come off. And thus we're going to loop over all the NFTs with wallets that we're just passing in. Now in our for loop, what we're going to do is create these two variables. We're firstly going to extract the token ID from the NFT data, and then from that wallet instance, we can get the to address via the wallet public key. Now this wallet is the wallet that we have created in the previous series that gets created for us dynamically. So that's why that will become our to address for this specific NFT in the loop. Now, right after the variables, let's add our try catch block like we usually do. Now in the catch block, we are going to log this message out. We are not going to throw in this case. And the reason for that is we do not want to hinder the process at this stage. We are rather going to also do a push. And we're going to take the results up here and push a results object, setting the success to false and actually showing the token ID and what went wrong. We would rather want the process to continue and not stop it halfway through. Afterwards, we can go and check if there were any errors, and if so, what happened, so we can manually do that transfer. As for the try block, here we can start off with a log, letting us exactly know which token is being transferred to which address. Then let's create a constant variable and say this will be our transaction, so TX. And here we're going to await. And what we're going to await for is this .nft contract .transfer from. And in the transfer from, we'll pass it this .wallet.address. So basically the holder wallet address, the to address, and then also the token ID that we want to transfer. Then we can go ahead and await for our receipts, the tx.wait. And after this, we should get some more information on what went right and what went wrong. In this case, if everything went right, then we have nothing to worry about. So we can just add a log to let us know that it was all fine. But also we can push this to our results, setting the success to true, and then everything is happy. Now, ladies and gentlemen, that is basically it. We can basically also just at the bottom before we return our results, just add an extra log telling us, how much successful results we had and if we need to go and attend to anything. But we are basically done. We have our service. All that's left to do is now to go to our run.ts file, implement it, create our new service here, and then run it. So let's quickly create our transfer service. Now this is a big service with a lot of options. So I'm just going to paste it in here and import our Ethereum NFT transfer service. Basically, we're calling it the NFT transfer service, and it is of type the new service we made. And for the options, we pass in the RPC URL, the NFT contract address, the NFT holder's address, and the NFT holder's private key. This we all get from the ENVs that we have already set up before. All we have to do now is go to the bottom, go here after we generate our cards, and then simply go ahead and call await the NFT transfer service dot transfer NFTs to wallet. And what we pass in is basically our NFT with wallet data. And that is all. So now we are basically done and we are going to run it. What we should see is if we go to Etherscan pretty soon after we run the program, that these NFTs here gets transferred out of here to the respective wallets that we created with the program. So without further ado, I'm going to now go and clear out the output, making sure that there is no previous old content. And I'm going to close this down so I don't reveal anything. Also, let's close down these as well. And in the terminal, we can simply go ahead and go run. Okay, so like before, we get the NFTs from that wallet, we print them out, we go and load the metadata, we create those cards, which we should see popping up in the output pretty soon. And there we go, there's our first one. Of course, I can't reveal it now to you, but we'll look at the data pretty soon. And then we get the card saved. Again, another NFT card being created. And we're going to create 4 cards as there are only 4 NFTs. Right after this process, we should see the transfer happening. And there we go. It's transferring this NFT to this public wallet. And pretty soon, once that's done, it's going to do the next one. And there we go. The first NFT has successfully been transferred, and there's the transaction hash. Now it's going to move over to the next one, and it will continue to do so for all 4. But in the meantime, what we can do is we can go to Etherscan, look at this address, and if we refresh this page right now, we can see that there's some transactions happening. We can see that 50 seconds ago, this NFT with this ID, which is the correct one, has been successfully sent to this wallet. Now, how cool is that? And we can just leave it to finish. Another few has completed. So again, we can go and refresh and see a similar result. Now, 1 minute ago, 25 seconds ago, 13 seconds ago, and there we go. All 4 of them successfully transferred. So in the app, it tells us that 4 out of 4 is done. Now that is it. And that is it for the entire series. This is also the last video of this series, and I really hope that you have enjoyed it. You can now take these cards and, file them up in a nice binder and surprise a friend with an NFT. How cool is that? I really hope that you enjoyed this video series with me, and I'm going to make another similar series right after this one. We're going to improve this process in a way where we don't need to deal with wallets at all. It's going to be very interesting. So subscribe to the channel if you do not want to miss out on that. Give this video a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. And also, I hope you have a beautiful day. Cheers for now. See you in the next video.